We're in session 9, and we've just finished looking at the priorities of a discipler, or of a disciple. And we're going to continue on just looking at the priority of evangelism. Okay? I believe evangelism and discipleship go hand in hand. We're called to go into all the world and make disciples, not just evangelize, but disciple. And discipleship, I believe, it includes evangelism, reaching the lost and discipling them in the foundations of the faith so that they can live a fruitful life. Okay? And I want to start off in John chapter 4. We're looking at the priority that we should have of evangelism. And I want to look at what Jesus demonstrated for us. Okay, so John chapter 4, I'm going to read from verse 6 down to 30. It says, "Now Jacob's well was there. Jesus, therefore, being wearied with his journey, let me just look there again. Sat thus on the well, and it was about the 6th hour. So Jesus was tired. That's encouraging, isn't it? that if Lord of all creation, God in the flesh got weary in his body on this earth there and took time to rest, we should too. But what I like here, it says that there came a woman of Samaria to draw water. And Jesus said unto her." So even when he was having his downtime, he didn't switch off his Jesus button. He didn't all of a sudden turn off his witness, turn off his ambassadorness. We are ambassadors of Christ, and we should never turn that switch off. Okay? Yes, we need to rest. Yes, we need to refresh. Yes, we need to take time out. But we don't ignore the lost when we're taking our time out and catching our breath. Okay? If opportunities come, we take them. And here came an opportunity for Jesus that he could not resist. There was a racial and religious division between the Jews and the Samaritans. And Jesus saw the Samaritan woman coming to the well, and he grabbed the opportunity with both hands. Look at him. He says to her, "Give me to drink." Okay? For his disciples had all gone to the city to buy meat. And then said the woman of Samaria unto him, "How is it that you, being a Jew, is asking me for a drink? I'm a woman of Samaria, and the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans." And Jesus answered and said unto her, "If you knew the gift of God, and who it is that says to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living waters." So let me just kind of break this down so far. I like it. Jesus broke through the social, racial, and religious walls to connect with this woman. Okay? We need to do the same sometime. That's talking about a strategicness. If you read through this, Jesus is being strategic. He's not just wishing and hoping and praying that something would happen. He's being very strategic about this. Okay, about reaching this woman. Okay, that we see there. And then we see that he's turned a natural conversation. "Give me something to drink." And she's like, "But why are you asking me for something to drink?" And he turns this natural conversation into a spiritual conversation. We need to learn skills like that. Turning natural conversations into spiritual conversations. Okay, and then the woman says to him, verse 11, "Sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence then hast thou that living water?" You can't draw water. Where do you get this water? How are you going to get this water? "Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank thereof himself and his children and his cattle?" And Jesus answered and said unto her, "Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again, but whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up to everlasting life." What I like from this passage here is that Jesus is, turning a natural conversation into a spiritual conversation. But now, look at how he's ministering to her. Verse 16. Jesus said, go call your husband to come here. Okay, now, the rest of the story, the woman answers and says, I have no husband. And Jesus says to her, you have answered well that you have no husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and he whom you now have is not your husband, in that thou hast said truly. And so the woman says, I perceive that you are a prophet. What I like here is that now Jesus uses the supernatural. He uses a word of knowledge. He uses the supernatural to connect to this woman, to minister to this woman, to get her attention. He's already got her attention, but this takes it deeper, takes it further. And then, gives her this a word of knowledge to connect with her in order to minister to her. And then Jesus ministers to her through interaction. He says something, she says something. And they're having some interaction. And I like the result of all of this, of the interaction. I'm not going to read through all of it, but the result of it in verse 28 is then the woman left her water pot and went away into the city and said to the men, come, see a man which has told me all things I ever did. Is this not the Christ? Meaning, is this not the Messiah? Is this not the promised one, the anointed one? And they all went out of the city and came unto him. That's a miracle. Okay? Because here we see, that this woman left her water pot. She left something that was valuable to her. She left something that she was previously occupied with. And she ran to go and tell others about her interaction with Jesus. Just a side note for a second. We should be having such rich fellowship with Jesus as believers that we leave whatever is occupying our attention and we just want to go and tell somebody. We should be so impacted by our original encounter with Jesus and our daily encounters with Jesus, relationship with him, in his word, with the Spirit, that we want to go and tell somebody about the love and the goodness of God. This is just how it should be. It should be normal Christian life. But what I like about this is that this woman, she's got a valuable water pot. She's not just collecting water so she can sprinkle it on the ground or, kind of just have a pot of water. This is something she needs. And yet she leaves it and she runs back to the town to tell people, hey, come and listen to this man. She becomes an evangelist. And let's just think about for a moment who this woman is. This woman has had 5 husbands and the one that she's now living with is not her husband. Jesus exposed that in her. Okay? She knew that Jesus knew exactly who she was. She knew that Jesus knew her life of sin. And yet she did not feel condemned or rejected. She felt liberated and empowered to go and tell others about Jesus. There's a whole bunch of good things in this message here, this passage of Scripture. Okay? The people, the men, I like how it actually says it here. It says that she went her way, she left her water pot and said to the men. She didn't say to some random men. It seems like it's specific men that she went to and told. These specific men, I'm pretty sure, knew her reputation. Okay. They knew that she had had 5 husbands and that the one that she was living with now was not her husband. They knew her reputation, and yet they still responded to her and went to listen to Jesus. They went to Jesus. So the people in the city most likely knew who she was, and yet that didn't stop Jesus from ministering to her, and it did not stop her from going to tell people about Jesus, and it did not stop hinder the people from responding to her and going and see Jesus. This is powerful. We're going to be looking at this when it comes to people of peace, a person of peace. And but what we need to see here is that we're not judging the person and where they're at. We're ministering to a person who's hungry. This woman was spiritually hungry. She was open to Jesus and what he had to say. And then she took what Jesus had to say and she went and told somebody. That is powerful. And we can learn a lot from this with regard to how Jesus related to the woman. At a later stage, we'll look at this in the context of how, from the woman's part, and how she's a person of peace and all of that. But this is important for us to see in terms of our discipleship, okay? In terms of our evangelism, in terms of our reaching out to people. To reach more people, to multiply the believers, to grow and increase the family, we need to increase our seed sowing. There'll be a greater harvest with greater seed. Now, there needs to be a strategicness about it, yes, but wherever we go, whatever we're doing, even when we're on holiday, we should be reaching out, seeking opportunities and seeking to create opportunities, to connect with people, to minister to people, to be able to reach out to people, to see that people respond to Christ and become followers of Christ. And so a priority in the disciples' life should be abundant seed sowing, reaching out to people and helping them to come to know Christ.